Have you ever met someone who seemed completely normal at first? Friendly, calm, the kind of person you'd trust without thinking twice. Now imagine finding out that behind that calm smile was a story so tangled, so obsessive, that it would eventually grip an entire courtroom and millions of people watching from home. That's the story of Jodi Arias, and at the center of it all, a man named Travis Alexander. Here's what I mean. Think about the last relationship you saw fall apart. Maybe it started small, a few arguments, mixed signals, late-night messages that probably shouldn't have been sent. Nothing that looked dangerous on the surface, just complicated. But sometimes complicated turns into something else entirely. And in this case, what started as a private relationship slowly turned into one of the most disturbing and talked-about criminal trials of the last 2 decades. Not because of shocking headlines alone, but because the deeper people looked, the stranger the story became. Phone records, road trips, changing stories, little details that didn't seem important at first, until suddenly they were. And once the truth started coming out in court, people couldn't look away. Not investigators, not the jury, not the millions watching from home. Because the question hanging over everything was painfully simple. How does a relationship go from love to a case that would divide an entire nation? Before we continue, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Okay, let's proceed. Before we really get into the story, I want to ground this for a moment. Because this isn't fiction. It's a real case, and real people were caught in the middle of it. We're talking about the murder of Travis Alexander, a case that led to one of the most talked about trials in recent American history involving Jodi Arias. It happened in Mesa in 2008, inside Travis's own home. Friends hadn't heard from him for days, which already felt wrong. When they finally went looking, what they found set off an investigation that would grip the entire country. And I want to be clear about something. This video discusses a real criminal case for educational and documentary purposes. The goal isn't shock or spectacle. It's understanding what happened, how investigators pieced things together, and why the state of Arizona versus Jodi Arias became such a defining moment in modern true crime history. Because when you look closely at this case, the timeline, the evidence, the testimony, you start to see why people are still talking about it all these years later. Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias were simply 2 people in a relationship that felt exciting, complicated, and very real. They met in 2006 at a buzzing work conference in Las Vegas. Travis stood out immediately. He was confident, energetic, the kind of person who could walk into a crowded room and leave with 10 new friends. Jodi noticed that about him right away, and Travis noticed her too. Jodi was quieter, more observant. She loved photography and often had a camera nearby, capturing small moments most people wouldn't think twice about. Travis, laughing with friends, a quick smile, a playful pose. Those little photos would later become snapshots of a relationship in motion. Their connection grew quickly. Long conversations turned into daily phone calls that stretched late into the night. Trips together, inside jokes, the kind of early romance where everything feels intense and a little unpredictable. Jodi became deeply interested in Travis's faith and eventually converted to the same church he belonged to. For Travis, that mattered. Faith wasn't just part of his life. It shaped the kind of future he hoped to build. Marriage, family, stability. And for a while, it looked like Jodi might be part of that future. They traveled together, attended events with friends, and filled their days with ordinary relationship moments. But behind that normal rhythm, their relationship had a different kind of energy. Passionate, emotional, sometimes uncertain. They lived in different states, which meant long drives, late-night calls, and long stretches apart. The distance didn't just test their relationship, it seemed to intensify it. They broke up, then reconnected, then pulled apart again. Friends sometimes describe the relationship as intense, the kind that pulls 2 people together just as strongly as it pushes them apart. And here's the strange thing. Looking back, the photos from that time show something that seems almost ordinary. Two young people smiling, travelling, building memories. Nothing in those pictures hints at what the world would eventually learn. Just two lives tangled together in ways no one fully understood yet. Up to this point, investigators were trying to understand what had happened inside the home of Travis Alexander in Mesa, Arizona. Authorities say a violent crime occurred inside the residence on June 4, 2008. Friends became concerned when Travis missed scheduled meetings and stopped answering calls. That wasn't normal for him. Eventually, they went to his house to check on him. Inside the bathroom, they discovered that a serious crime had taken place and contacted police immediately. Investigators started looking at the people closest to him. One name came up again and again: Jodi Arias, his former girlfriend. At first, Jodi told police she hadn't seen Travis in a long time. She said she was nowhere near the house that day. But detectives kept digging. Phone records, rental car information, and digital evidence started telling a different story. Here's what I mean. During the investigation, police recovered a camera from the home. The memory card had been damaged, but forensic specialists were able to restore the files. The photos showed Jodi and Travis together inside the house on the same day the crime happened. That discovery changed everything. When confronted with the evidence, Jodi's story shifted. She later admitted she had been at the house. Her explanation evolved again during the investigation and later in court, where she eventually acknowledged responsibility for Travis's death while claiming it happened during a confrontation. The medical examiner's autopsy report confirmed that Travis died inside his home that day and that the death was the result of a violent incident. Investigators used the report, along with the digital evidence and timelines, to reconstruct what likely happened inside the house. Step by step, the case that began with a missing friend turned into one of the most widely followed criminal trials in recent history. And from that point forward, the focus shifted to one question that would dominate the courtroom for years. What really happened in that house between Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias? The case of Jodi Arias isn't just complicated. When you look closely at the timeline, the photos, and the changing stories, it begins to look less like confusion and more like someone trying to escape the truth. In the end, Travis Alexander lost his life in a place where he should have been safe. And no matter how dramatic the courtroom became, one thing remains clear: he deserved better, and accountability matters. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.